Do you support Measure J? Why or why not?
Measure J. I support it because I think that people should have a right to vote as often as possible on things that will affect their lives. And so since this gives people the right to vote on annexation and things like that and the rezoning of land, I think that the citizens of Davis should have the greatest possible opportunity to give input in the way that their city is formed, and that's why I support it. Yeah.
All right. You're relatively new to the community.
Yes.
Why did you decide to run for Davis City Council?
I started thinking about this back in October, November, when my constitutional law professor at UC Davis School of Law had put up on the overhead projector some examples of municipal ordinances in Davis that were blatantly unconstitutional. And it was unfathomable to me that he would repeatedly put things up there that clearly violate established Supreme Court precedent, clearly violating the First Amendment. And I wondered, how can this happen in a city as progressive, as modern, as intelligent as this one? Why are these laws still on the books? So as I tried to look into that, I learned that the code hasn't been significantly revised since the 60s, and that there are significant problems with that. And then after the student protests started happening at Marac Hall for the fee increases, and then later about the hate crimes on campus and the repeated protests to the budget cuts and everything, the way that the police treated the students who are inhabitants of Davis, who are residents here, who deserve the same respect as anyone else, that also was unfathomable to me. And they, just from personal experience, I know that the police here regularly violate the constitutional rights of the students, of the citizens, that they racially profile. There's no doubt in my mind that they do. I've filed a California Public Records Act request with the police department asking for the aggregate data, the race, gender, and age of citizens that are detained by the police department. The police department claims both in the same email to me that they either A, do not have that data, or B, cannot release it because it's part of an ongoing investigation. So there's a lot of little quirks like that, a lot of little things that I think the current city council isn't paying attention to because they are not students. They have no contact with students. I've never seen any of the city council members out at these student protests trying to mediate, trying to negotiate, trying to convince the students perhaps to direct their protest in a more productive manner. Instead of trying to shut down the freeway, maybe they could keep it to campus, maybe they could rent a bus and bus themselves over to the Capitol instead of pulling fire alarms, but there was no one there. There's no membership of the city council who's represented at these protests. So these two things are what really inspired me to run. And I think that a lot of the fixes to these little problems in Davis can be effectuated without any significant impact on the city's budget. A lot of these things cost no money. It's just a matter of will to accomplish them.
Okay.
Elected officials are the stewards of the environment in our communities. We have an age in which humanity will face the effects of climate change and peak oil. At the same time, we're faced with budget shortfalls due to Republican desire to starve the beast of government. How do you see the city can go about continuing to work on being green in a time of budget shortfalls?
I think that Davis's reputation as the most bicycle-friendly city in the country is something that we should try to preserve. And when you have local businesses, for example, the owner of Ace Hardware, that try to block bicycle-related events here that promote the image of Davis as a bicycle-friendly community, like the Criterium races, I think that's unfortunate. And I think that that's something the City Council should try to prevent, anything that would damage the reputation of us being a place for alternative transportation, promoting that. I also think that any growth, any infill in existing places, any approval for more construction, more housing, it needs to be done in a responsible way that makes Davis a walkable city, if possible, and also takes into account the potential for public transportation to any of the new housing developments. So I think really Davis is, other than, we still have traffic problems downtown, but I think Davis is pretty good on that front, and I think just continuing those efforts along the lines of public transportation and alternative forms of transportation and making it a more walkable city, I think would go towards that.